Hey everyone, and welcome to my latest Mythic Plus dungeon tanking guide for Season 2 in the War Within. In this video, I'm going to cover Priory of the Sacred Flame. I'm getting back to strength after surgery, so apologies for the slower pace of videos lately. I'm motivated to reach that 1000 sub mark and have some new ideas lined up for upcoming videos. I'm planning to pick up the pace in the next few weeks, so if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, it would mean a lot. As of recording, we were in a fortified week, so mobs hit pretty hard. Keep that in mind. I like to make these videos as bug friendly as possible, but you could opt for a big pull with Bloodlust at the start of the dungeon, which is probably the default on non-fortified weeks. Communicate with the group about positioning behind the wall until you return. This can be a pretty tricky pull since you won't be able to DPS the mobs and you don't want the healer to get aggro healing you. Even though it might feel bad, you might need to pop a potion early on. Pull the first set of small adds along with the 2 patrols left and right and the small pack in front of the fountain. Move back behind the wall and line of sight them. Let them run towards you. Start burning them down with Bloodlust. Still, if you are unsure, ask the healer to tag along, but make sure the healing doesn't put them on the top of the aggro table. Going back to a safe route for fortified weeks, I like to stagger my pulls here. Tag the footman and drag them towards the first patrol, which contains another footman, a knight and a sharpshooter. The sharpshooter can be annoying at first, but they'll leap into the pack shortly, so don't worry about this too much. Be aware that the knight's impale and the footman's mortal strikes apply a bleed and healing reduction on you, which can stack up over time. To handle this, space out your mitigation towards the end of the pull. Eventually, the other patrol will reach the group, so pull those and do the same with the pack in front of the fountain once the group is stable and the healer isn't draining mana. Note that the fountain has a sacred flame, which a paladin or priest can interact with to grant the group a 30-minute Blessing of the Sacred Flame buff. This buff adds some additional holy damage to all spells and abilities, but it does not persist to death. Also, I find the mini-bosses on the right side of the dungeon way too messy, so I usually stick to the left. I also staggered the next pull to smooth out the damage intake on the group and avoid dealing with another annoying sharpshooter. However, on non-fortified weeks, you can just pull these together with the next pack and the mini-boss at the lower part of the stairs. This next pack contains a priest and a conjurer, so your main interrupt priority here is the priest's greater heal. When the guard captain Suleiman patrols back the mini-boss, pull him onto the stairs and position yourself directly in front of him, aligned with the stairs. This positioning ensures that his shield slam, which deals significant damage and knocks you back, is completely nullified, making the pull much easier and less messy. Running up the stairs, keep an eye out for the mini-boss Sergeant Chainmail running towards you, so make sure to taunt her as soon as she's in range. Expect a lot of AoE and sustained melee damage as the tank, along with plenty of avoidable ground effects. Make sure to mitigate properly and stay immobile to avoid the bad. I staggered the next pull again to smooth out the incoming damage. However, on non-fortified runs, you can just combine these packs on the lower left part of the stairs. You can use the stairs to line of sight the mobs and make them stack up nicely. Just be mindful that when the light spawns are nearly dead, they will deal damage and heal any friendly NPC with a large circle. So move any leftover mobs out of it or kill them last. If needed, you can also use the other side of the stairs for line of sight to force them to move. Note that each of these 3 packs has a priest, which is another reason to stagger if your group struggles with interrupts or isn't sure which spells to interrupt. Any crowd control will be helpful to prevent greater heals from going off, as those can drag out the fight unnecessarily. After these pulls, you should be able to combine High Priest Emiya with her many neophyte disciples. Just make sure to interrupt the first cast so you can easily position her more conveniently. This is a great pull to get some AoE burst damage going. However, be mindful of the reflective shield on the High Priest because it reflects 40% of all damage you deal to her until the shield is removed. If you're struggling with this pull, it might help to hold off on funneling damage onto her until the shield drops. Also, note that her inner fire buff can be dispelled, making her even less of a threat. For the next pull, I usually combine the pack with the last mini-boss running towards you, Tenor Duelmal. However, if you notice the group or healer is struggling, you can wait in this area for Tenor to come to you and handle him separately. Tenor deals the significant magical damage to you and the group, with one mandatory interrupt, Cinder Blast. So if you as the tank focuses on that one, that will help out a lot. He also uses Ember Storm, leaving a lot of ground clutter to avoid. Combining him with the patrolling pack means you'll have to manage another greater heal from the priest. So make sure you or someone in the group prioritizes that interrupt. Cinder Blast from Tenor combined with the traps from the stationary sharpshooters can make this pull quite messy, so have the group use defensives to reduce the strain on the healer. If the healer is struggling, it is best to split up these pulls. The first boss you'll encounter is Captain Dailcry. Following the route outlined in this video, you'll end up fighting him along with the last mini-boss, Elena Emberlands. There are two reasons for taking out the earlier mini-bosses one by one. The boss will have a buff called Strength in Numbers, which increases their damage to the group by 200% for each nearby mini-boss. Additionally, if a mini-boss isn't summoned by another mini-boss, it won't count towards the overall mob percentage needed to clear the dungeon. Elena Emberlands will cast Divine Judgment on you, increasing your damage taken by 25%. Combined with Pierce Armor from Captain Dailcry, this significantly ramps up the damage you'll take. Aside from the usual tank buster, make sure to rotate your mitigations as soon as you see both debuffs on you at the same time, to handle the heavy incoming damage. Also, make sure to interrupt Dailcry's battle cry, missing it will most likely be fatal. Avoid his hurl spear ability, marked by a red line on the ground. You can use Bloodlust here whenever it's off cooldown. Next, we'll be facing Paladins and Templars. Personally, I like to use the corners just outside the door to line of sight the next pack along with the neophytes, since they aren't too dangerous. Using the corners will stack the group nicely, which DPS players usually appreciate. Just give the group a heads up to prevent anyone from charging in and accidentally pulling aggro. The most notable ability from these packs is the Paladin's Consecration. Use the corners again to make sure all mobs follow along the wall, keeping them stacked for some nice cleave damage and helping the DPS huddle up nicely for the healer's benefit. You'll see me staggering the pulls here again due to the fortified affix. However, on non-fortified weeks, I like to instruct the group to stay outside while I pull both packs using the same corner tactic to cleave them down. Keep in mind that this approach means dealing with 3 paladins at once, so you'll need to move around a bit more, circling back to the entrance once you've used all the space around the corners. When staggering the packs, once one pack is nearly down, I move to the other on the opposite side of the room, switching between the left and right areas. Be aware that once one pack is cleared, another will come running down the stairs. Position yourself closer to the outer edge of the room to leave enough space for the group to move and avoid accidental pulls. Make sure to interrupt the greater heals from the priest, and once the stair packs from both sides are down, the boss will jump down. The next boss you'll be facing is Baron Braunpyke, a powerful paladin who is about to get his first taste of defeat. I like to move him as soon as he casts Hammer of Wrath to more easily avoid the ground clutter it leaves behind. Just after the hammers, he will place a sacrificial pyre on the ground with 3 charges. Running through it deals AoE damage to the group, applies a dot to the player and removes a charge. All charges need to be cleared within 30 seconds to avoid a wipe. If you have someone with immunity in the group, that person should handle the charges first. If not, as the tank, pop a defensive and clear as many charges as possible, while letting the rest of the group rotate one charge per person. On tyrannical weeks, with empowered bosses, you should be able to take at least 2, maybe 3 charges with good defensives. On non-tyrannical weeks, you can take more if the boss is not empowered with Vindictive Wrath, basically his version of a paladin's wings, increasing his abilities damage by 100%. Additionally, make sure to interrupt the burning light and avoid the impact zones of his castigator's shield.
Hammers.
Moving up the stairs after the boss, you'll face another pack with 2 paladins and priests. Backpedal on each consecration and make sure to interrupt the greater heals from the priests. The next room is prone for accidental pulls, so I like to instruct the group to wait in the hallway and use the walls to line of sight when pulling. A new ad you'll encounter here is the Risen Mage. Aside from some additional magic damage and potential interrupts, it doesn't add much for you as the tank to handle. Once again, we have a priest in the mix, so make sure to interrupt the greater heal. At this point, with most mobs nearly down, it would have been ideal to chain pull the first leftmost pack that we skipped earlier, as we had to kill it at the end for percentage. I made a small calculation mistake here. Also, pulling this pack earlier would give access to another Sacred Flame for a paladin or priest to refresh the Blessing of the Flame buff on the group. Pulling back this pack again, these can be more challenging due to Sir Braunpyke. Be prepared to rotate your defensives as he deals a ton of damage on you as a tank. On fortified weeks, it might even be worth using Bloodlust if available to make sure this pack goes down quickly. Move into the room and clear the patrol. Have some interrupts ready for the mages and position them away from the packs on the right side of the room to avoid accidental pulls. The last packs of the dungeon contain a few footmen and priests. I stagger these again to ensure the priest is interrupted and moves, but even on fortified weeks you can combine them and take them down quickly. Both packs must be killed before engaging the boss, otherwise they will join the fight as soon as the boss encounter begins. The last boss in the dungeon is Prioress Murrpray. During the fight, players will have to deal with the Sacred Flame following them, leaving ground clutter, and also calling down a Holy Flame circle to avoid. The key mechanic here is Blinding Light, a long cast that when finished will disorient anyone facing her for 4 seconds and deal significant damage. You can easily avoid this by turning your back to her just before the cast ends. As the tank, the main threat in this fight is when she buffs herself with Inner Fire, increasing her damage by 50%. With the tyrannical affix, you'll want to use extra mitigation during this phase. When she reaches 50% health, she shields herself and moves to the higher plateau. The shield is removed by damage, so follow her up the stairs quickly. While the shield is active, the boss will spawn small adds that run up the stairs. These cannot be aggroed by you as the tank, so use any CC you have. And note that the adds also take damage from the AoE below the stairs, so they will eventually die if they left there. Clear the remaining adds quickly and handle the mechanics the same way as in the first half of the fight. If you have Bloodlust available, use it during the second half as soon as everyone reaches the top of the stairs. After downing the boss, congrats! You've successfully completed the Priory of the Sacred Flame dungeon and are one step closer to mastering all the dungeons this season throws at you. I really hope this video has been helpful or interesting to watch. And if so, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, since I'm aiming to hit that 1000 sub mark soon. Thanks for watching, and you'll hear me in the next video.